Porters and Stouts. These are some iconic Porters and Stouts. I'm pretty new to this style. I've had some beers that I've really enjoyed and some beers that actually ended up in the drain. And hopefully we will have Anna back next week, who helped me with the barley wines, if you remember, because this is one of her favorite styles and she will help me kind of navigate the different beers. But I thought I could start exploring a bit on my own here. So at least I hopefully can tell the difference between a porter and a stout. So if we start with Fuller's London Porter. The porter was super popular, I've read, in the 1800s maybe? I'm not sure about this, but maybe it was like usual in beer history, that when the Pilsners spread across the world, all other beers lost their popularity. For some reason anyway, people stopped drinking porters. And could it be in the 1990s? Fuller's took up the tradition again and brewed this London Porter. Let's have a first sniff impression. This is kind of what I want a Doppelbock to smell like, even though this is an ale, I guess you could say, top fermented, and Doppelbocks usually are bottom fermented. It smells soft and inviting, of chocolate, a mix of dark chocolate and milk chocolate. You have some figs in there, and I guess you could say coffee, but more like soft ice coffee or something. Yeah, more like coffee candy, something with coffee flavor, not actual coffee, if you know what I mean. Dark bread, maybe raisin bread actually. Smells lovely, but let's open the next one. Guinness then. Ooh, wow. Listen to this. I didn't shake it or anything. Is it possible to pour from that little opening? No. Okay, let's open it all the way. I'm not used to this one, but there is fidget, I think it's called, in here to produce the foam in the kind of the correct way. Now, this is popular not only in the UK, but in warmer countries as well, I know. Amongst beer connoisseurs, this is maybe not the favorite stout in the world. It's just very iconic and I want to explore it, you know, and I also want to clean up here. So the way I understand it, brewers from Ireland kind of picked up this porter style that was popular in London and then changed it up a bit. They roasted the malt harder. I think it's also a bit drier, but I'm not sure. Let's have a first impression sniff. Maybe not as much of the chocolate, especially not the milk chocolate. Not as much coffee aroma as I expected here either. Also figs, but maybe something sweeter as well, like syrup. Also smells inviting, but not as harshly roasted as I expected. Carnegie Porter is the oldest still active beer brand in Sweden, and it has changed owners many times through history, and now it's owned and brewed by Carlsberg, but still in Sweden, in the city of Falkenberg, the Falcon Mountain. It used to be a classic porter, but around 20 years ago they swapped out the yeast for a lager yeast. So I guess you could call this a Baltic porter, but Baltic porters are usually stronger and have a lot more flavor, I think. First impression sniff. Also figs and syrup, maybe leaning more towards the syrupy side of things. Not a lot of coffee or chocolate. More like chocolate coated liquor candy, where there's only a thin wall of chocolate. It also smells nice. So let's first compare the aromas properly. If we go back to the London Porter again, it has probably the most poignant, if that's an English word, the most powerful aroma. But it just, smells like a dessert. Maybe that milk chocolate is the biggest difference from the other two. Guinness again. It just smells less. The London Porter also has more of the coffee. It has pretty much most of everything. And the Carnegie Porter, maybe the most sugary. A little bit like sugar-coated marmalade candy. London Porter, definitely the most impressive aroma. But let's dig in. Cheers! It actually dries out, and you're left with the coffee in the finish. And there you have a bit of bitterness, almost like a nutty bitterness. And in the beginning, it's the more round figs and maybe a bit of syrup as well. I find orange, bitter orange. And even if it dries out and get a bit bitter in the end, you have some sort of honey or something as well, making the aftertaste a bit more sweet. Yeah, beautiful. I enjoyed that. Alright, Guinness Sláinte. It's lighter and doesn't at all have the same kind of vibrant flavors. They're all a bit toned down. I think it's also weaker in the alcohol. 4.2% ABV. So that's more than 1% less than the porters. I get a bit of the bread, something I didn't think about at all in the London Porter. You have some sort of dry, dark bread in the finish, orange zest, also a bit of the same nutty aftertaste, but less bitter and less lingering. But it dries out as well and ends on more of a lemon seed kind of bitterness. But it's nicely balanced, it's refreshing, and if you would up the coffee and the bitterness, I don't think it would be as good. So it's drier, more kind of watery than the London Porter, and maybe also more sessionable. You could easily drink one more after this one, and of course you don't get as drunk either. I guess for me this would be an interesting beer to try together with food, but I would probably choose another one to drink just by itself. Okay, Carnegie Porter, the Baltic Porter, maybe. Skål! Yeah, it actually feels more like a lager than an ale. Pretty high lemon citrus notes, which I didn't notice in these two. Again, the nice nutty finish, but this time not as bitter. Well, there is some late in the aftertaste. What else? There are some figs. The maltiness is more like white bread. Pretty sugary syrup, or maybe something more artificial. A little bit of bitter dark chocolate, but I'm surprised of the lack of chocolate and coffee notes. A hint of bitter orange. It's also fairly light compared to the London Porter, I think, even though they have about the same ABV. The Carnegie is actually 0.0% stronger. The London Porter, again. Yeah, it has so much more of a fuller taste. Get it? More of the coffee, more of the chocolate. And it also definitely has the highest bitterness. But with that sweet start, you don't really mind. It's like when it's sweet, you want to get to the bitter part, and when it's dry and bitter, you want to go back to the sweet beginning again. I wonder what it would be like to replace the Carnegie Porter with the London Porter in the mumma, the traditional Swedish Christmas beer drink that I made a video about. I have to try that for next Christmas. So in conclusion, Guinness is the most sessionable, smashable. The Carnegie Porter is the sweetest with the less bitterness. And Fuller's London Porter is the one with the explosion of both aromas and flavors. And for me, I think it's too early to make a conclusion about the difference between porter and stout. I have to taste many more before I can understand the difference. But if I have to choose to drink only one of these beers, I of course choose Fuller's London Porter. Check out the video with Anna over here. We had a lot of fun. And remember, drink responsibly.